Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I am Ryan Clifton Bowling. Today, I want to talk about the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre film that has come out on Netflix. Now, normally covering movies is not something that I do. I believe I covered Halloween Kills. Yeah, Halloween Kills, and I gave a little comment on Halloween Kills. Today, I want to talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, this is a spoiler-free review, which means I'm not going to be giving away any of the plot. I'm not going to be giving away anything. So, because if you want to see the movie and you haven't seen the movie, then I'm not going to be giving you any plot points. I will say this, that I did like the movie. It was very entertaining, very bloody for those that like horror movies. I'm a horror fan, and I liked it. It was very bloody. It had its flaws, but it's very bloody. It's in no way even remotely close to the original 1974 classic by Tobe Hooper. As a matter of fact, watching this film gave me the urge to go back and watch, excuse me, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I did that last night, and I was just blown away. I'm like, man, this movie still terrifies me to this very day. But anyway, I want to talk about this new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. And the reason why I want to talk about this film is because I want to give it a political spin, because there is a political message in the movie that I believe. So anything I give on it, whether it's entertainment or whatever the case may be, it's always going to be given a political spin from a conservative perspective. That's actually in my description box if you go and take a look at that. But having said that, I like the movie. Okay, like I said, I liked the movie. It was great. It was bloody. It was gory. In fact, it can be argued that this film is probably one of the bloodiest of all the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. Okay, so it has all of those elements. It's a direct sequel to Tobe Hooper's 1974 classic. So all the other Texas Chainsaw Massacres have been basically done away with. And this is supposedly a direct sequel to that. So right up the front, Texas Leatherface is probably 1,000 years old. Okay, well, probably about 60, probably in his 70s, but I'm not going to give away much of that. Here's what I want to talk about. When I first heard that there was going to be a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie that was going to come out on Netflix, exclusive for the Netflix, the first thing I thought was, oh my goodness, I don't want to see this. It's going to be another liberal, woke, piece of trash. That's what I thought. I mean, that was the first thing I saw. Oh man, it's coming on Netflix. Netflix is the hotbed for these woke movies and woke TV shows. And I said, oh man, I don't want to be bothered with this. But I was listening to the reviews of other reviewers and people I subscribe to, and they gave a relatively positive review. Most of their reviews didn't have anything to do with politics. Okay, it wasn't a political spin on anything. It was just that some liked it, some didn't like it. What made me want to do a review on the film was an article I read. Or I won't say a review on the film, but maybe make a comment on the movie, certain elements in the movie, was an article I read from Breitbart that reflected actually what I actually was thinking after I watched the movie. And that was that this film is not as woke as people might think it is. As a matter of fact, when you watch the film, there are elements in the film that tend to allude to it being woke, but then Leatherface slaughters the so-called what the title of the article says in Breitbart, woke tards. He slaughters these people. I mean, in brutal ways. You got to see this. Like I said, I don't want to give away. I just give you a hint. There's a bus scene in which Leatherface enters on the bus, and there's all these people on the bus, and they take their phones and they're filming him. And one guy says, "You probably seen this in the trailer. If you try anything crazy, man, you're gonna get canceled." And that's all I'm gonna say about that. I'll just put it to you like this: Leatherface certainly didn't get canceled. They did, but he didn't. So that seems to be an attack against the so-called woke agenda. There are some elements in the film that are woke. When I first started watching it, after I was persuaded to say, okay, convinced from other people's reviews of it, I said, let me go ahead and give this a chance. There were certain scenes and aspects of it that I was like, oh man, here we go. You know, the so-called, the scene it was a Confederate flag, and one of the main characters was like, oh, he looked up at it and he saw the so-called Confederate flag, and he was like, oh man, they got that. In other words, suggesting that the town that they entered into was full of racist white supremacists. And I'm like, oh God, here we go with this. And then there was another couple of scenes, not going to give away too much of it, another couple of scenes where it had elements of wokeness in it. And I'm like, oh man, come on now. But what I liked about the film, it didn't focus on these woke elements. It didn't focus on these leftist elements. And it didn't make these elements a central theme or plot point in the film. Okay. And I appreciated that. And what it also did was it flipped things around. All these woke elements that were being spoken by the characters in the film were actually, I hate to put it this way, debunked through Leatherface's chainsaw, if you will. Okay. So it's almost like one could argue when looking at this film with political glasses on and being able to see the political flavor of this film, or the subtle subtext, political subtext of the film, one could argue, man, this is actually an attack against the woke culture. One could argue that it is an attack against the woke culture, or one could argue that it gives equal siding to both. Okay? But it seems to suggest, this movie to me seems to suggest, having watched it, that the producers and filmmakers are beginning to understand, Hollywood producers and filmmakers and highly financed filmmakers and production companies are beginning to understand that making all these woke movies and pushing these woke agendas ad nauseum is not bringing back the revenue. And this movie seems to suggest, in my opinion, that they're starting to pull back now. Lobbyists and activist groups are still pushing and trying to get them to put these elements in the movies. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit at length. But it's like, okay, man, we're losing money. People are not going to see our movies because we keep pushing these agendas on them. And people want to see the movies to be entertained. They don't want to see the movies to be preached to about some political ideology. Okay, whatever that political ideology may be. So this movie suggests to me that they may be, producers and directors and writers may be pulling back a little bit and starting to say, hey, people just want to be entertained, man. Okay, we're going to put these woke elements in it, but we're not going to focus on them. And then not only are we not going to focus on them, we're going to cut them down. Okay. So that way the activists, the leftist woke activists can't complain that we didn't put these elements in the movie. But at the same time, those who are conservative or in the middle is not going to be offended and disgusted at our films because they make up a vast majority of the audience that spend the money to see these films. They're not going to back away from it. They're going to go ahead and watch it and tolerate it. So that's what I think what is going on here. However, like I said, I like the movie. It's nowhere in comparison to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I like the movie. Let me say this. Also, we got to remember that the communist insurgents in 1933 from the Frankfurt School of Marxism that came here, okay, had an agenda to change America from the inside. So they infiltrated not only the school systems, but the entertainment industry, politics, religion. They infiltrated all the institutions in this country that have the most influence on people's perceptions in order to change their behavior about communism and Marxism and about capitalism. The purpose was to destroy capitalism, destroy Christianity, destroy the family, and promote Marxism and communism and socialism in a positive light. Okay? Films is one of those institutions. Music is one of those institutions. In fact, if you read one of the 45 communist goals, if you read one of the 45 communist goals, one of those goals is to infiltrate the film industry, music, and art. That's one of their goals, to infiltrate and take over these areas to spread the belief of communism and the belief of Marxism and socialism. We see it in a lot of our movies. Many of the directors, writers, and producers have this worldview, and they have no shame in promoting what they personally believe in, which is this idea that all the woes and problems of our society are caused by capitalism and Christians and capitalism, and we need to destroy them. We need to get rid of them. How you see this in films and commercials and TV shows is through the plots, the plot lines, and the dialogue of the characters. So you're able to pick it up right off the bat. That's because they know and understand that movies influence people's perceptions and influence people's behavior. I hear people say, well, movies don't influence people's behavior. I say, how in the world can you believe that movies don't influence people's behavior? Let me give you an example of how movies influence people's behavior. Some of you might be familiar with this, but some of you may be younger, you might not be. But there was a movie came out in the 1970s, like 1978, starring actor John Travolta, Saturday Night Fever. The movie was a huge hit, and it brought the era of disco to the light. It made it mainstream, okay? It made disco mainstream. When that movie came out and became a huge hit, it looked like everybody wanted to be like John Travolta. They wanted to dance like John Travolta. They wanted to wear the clothes that John Travolta had. They wanted to be cool like John Travolta. And it didn't matter what your race was. From what I understand, there were some black people that were trying to be like John Travolta. Why? Because the movie influenced people's perceptions and influenced their behavior. If movies and music didn't influence people, then why would you sing the songs? Why would you recite the lines? Why would you dress with the same clothes that they have? Clearly, they're influencing people's perceptions. So these filmmakers and producers and writers of screenplays who hold to a Marxist ideology and Marxist worldview understand that. And so through their movies and screenplays, okay, and plot lines, they promote their Marxist belief system. And you'll see it in the movies. You'll hear it in the songs. You'll see it in the commercials. You will see it in the sitcoms. Okay? So that's what's going on. That's what's going on. But clearly, the way I see it from this new movie, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, not the Texas Chainsaw, but they took the definitive "the" out and just called it Texas Chainsaw Massacre, whatever. I see that same ideology in the movie, but that is done in such a way that it's not offensive. Okay, they have some woke elements in it, but the woke elements are not shoved down your throat. Okay, and at the same time, those individuals who have this woke worldview in the movies, those characters who have the woke worldview, I'll just say they get off, and they get off pretty badly. So if you want to see the movie, whether or not you may be asking, okay, do you advise I see the movie? If you like horror movies and you like gory horror movies, I advise you see it. As far as the characters is concerned, in my opinion, it wasn't all. The characters, in my opinion, weren't all that fleshed out. I didn't really care much about the characters. And Leatherface, he in this film, he's almost like a super killer. Whereas in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he was this partially retarded killer. I mean, he was like, he wasn't bloodthirsty. In this film, he's bloodthirsty. They made him like a vengeful, bloodthirsty beast. And they could be argued, people can argue, well, they changed him up and I don't like that. But it could be simply that the reason why they changed him up like that is because now he's more angry. Back then, he was, halfway retarded and his father was beating him up and calling him a coon, all kinds of stuff, beating him with a broomstick and all this. You nappy-haired idiot, you messed up the door, and all this beating him with a broomstick. Oh, he running around, crying and carrying on because he was half retarded. But could it be with this new one, it's like, well, he may still have that kind of mental retardation about him, but he's grown a little bit. He's more angry. He's bigger, So it could be arguable. Nevertheless, I like the movie. I'll give it a marginal thumbs up. And I do suggest that those that like those kind of movies go see it. But I just wanted to get my spin on that. What do you guys think? If you've seen the movie, leave your review, your comments in the comment section below. If you like this video, press the like button, share this video, and subscribe. God bless you all, and see you again.